Welcome to the Drunken Zombies Podcast, your daily dose of zombie tales. I'm Adrian, your host for this thrilling ride through the world of the undead.
And I'm Julia, your zombie expert, here to break down these stories and uncover those fascinating layers beneath all the flesh-eating mayhem.
We're so excited you're joining us for this new show where every day we're going to explore a different zombie story.
We're aiming to bring you guys, a mix of spine-chilling thrills and insightful analysis, and of course, masterful storytelling that will keep you craving more tales of brains and mayhem.
So today we're sinking our teeth into a story about Milo Red, a guy who gets a spooky second chance at life and a terrifying glimpse into the future. Buckle up, because things are about to get undead.
This story really is a thought-provoking exploration of human potential and fate and free will. It really makes you wonder how you would react if you were suddenly given this kind of power.
All right, so let's set the scene. Milo is in a bad accident, he flatlines in the hospital, and then bam, he's back. But something's different. He's got this unsettling new ability to see flashes of the past and future just by touching people or objects. Kind of cool, kind of creepy,
Yeah.
right?
It's a popular theme, this idea of a near-death experience triggering some kind of latent abilities.
Yeah.
It really taps into this human fascination with the mysteries of the brain, and this idea that we might only be using a fraction of our true potential. Psychometry, which is, the ability to perceive information about a person or event just through touch, is just a particularly intriguing example.
Makes you wonder what other hidden powers might be lurking within us. Speaking of powers, get this. One of Milo's visions is a full-blown zombie outbreak.
And this is where the story takes that classic zombie trope, and it adds this layer of psychological suspense. Because it's not just about the immediate threat of, flesh-eating monsters, but Milo is burdened with this knowledge of a terrifying potential future and this agonizing uncertainty of whether he can prevent it.
Right, and that's what I find so gripping about this story.
Mhm.
It's not just about the zombies themselves. It's about Milo's internal struggle to understand what's happening to him, his fear, his desperation to, regain control. He's freaking out, and I don't blame him. But then he remembers the nurse from the hospital. She was strangely calm when he came back from the dead, maybe a little too calm. So he tracks her down, hoping for some answers.
Yeah, this introduction of a mentor figure is such a common element in stories like this. It suggests that even when facing something so extraordinary, like possibly world-ending circumstances, we don't have to go it alone. There's potential for guidance and support even in the face of the undead.
And as it turns out, this nurse is more than just a caregiver. She seems to understand what Milo is going through. And she even drops this hint about being on the home team, the human one, as if there's this bigger game going on. It gives me chills.
That home team line. I know, right? It adds a whole new level of intrigue. Is there a secret organization fighting against the forces of darkness? Are there others like Milo out there with these unique abilities? It raises more questions than it answers, which is always a good thing when you're trying to hook the reader.
Yeah, definitely got me hooked.
Mhm.
So the nurse reassures Milo that he's not losing his mind, which is a relief, I guess. But then she gives him this cryptic clue. He needs to look for answers in this old atlas that he touched. Apparently, it holds secrets about plagues and viruses. And we all know zombies and viruses go together like brains and, zombies.
This connection between ancient plagues and the modern zombie trope is fascinating. It really reflects our deep-seated fears of disease and these uncontrollable outbreaks. By grounding the story in this historical context, the author adds this layer of realism to the fantastical. It makes the threat feel even more palpable.
It's almost like a warning, like history might be about to repeat itself, but this time with a gruesome, flesh-eating twist. And then the million-dollar question, how do you stop a zombie apocalypse?
That's the ultimate challenge, right? And the nurse, this enigmatic mentor, she gives Milo a starting point. Find out the name of the woman on the train. Seemed like such a small detail, but it underscores this idea that even when you're facing overwhelming odds, individual actions can make a difference. It's a message of empowerment. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play, even in the most dire circumstances.
It's a reminder that every detail, every connection could be the key to survival. So there we have it. The stage is set for an epic fight against the undead. Milo has these spooky new powers, a mysterious mentor, and a ticking clock. But the question remains, can he figure out how to use them in time to save himself and everyone else?
The stakes couldn't be higher. This story prompts us to ask ourselves, what choices would we make in such extreme situations? Would we rise to the occasion like Milo, or would we crumble under the pressure?
That's a question for another day, perhaps after a few more Drunken Zombies episodes. But for now, we need to take a break. We'll be back soon with part 2 of Milo's story, so stick around and don't miss out on the next thrilling chapter.
And remember to rate and follow the Drunken Zombies podcast for more chilling tales of the undead. We'll be back soon with more brains, more mayhem, and more insightful analysis to keep you hooked.
Welcome back to the Drunken Zombies podcast. We're picking up right where we left off with Milo, our reluctant hero with the spooky second sight.
He's facing quite the terrifying dilemma, burdened with this vision of a zombie apocalypse and the seemingly impossible task of preventing it.
So picture this. Milo is back in his apartment staring at this antique atlas, the one the nurse told him to check out. Gotta be giving him the creeps, right?
Yeah.
But he has this burning question. Who IS'd this woman on the train? He needs her name a starting point for this investigation.
And this is where his, seemingly ordinary life as a graphic designer could become pretty crucial. He's likely very skilled at recognizing visual details and probably has access to like a whole arsenal of online tools. So it's not a stretch to imagine him, using facial recognition software or combing through social media trying to identify her.
You're right, he's not a trained detective or anything, but his digital skills might be his best weapon in this fight against the undead.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what he does. He spends hours scouring the internet, using every trick in his designer's toolbox to find her.
It's a clever way for the author to connect the story to our own, digital age.
Yeah.
We live in a world where information is constantly at our fingertips. And by using familiar tools like facial recognition and social media, the author is grounding those supernatural elements in a reality that we can all relate to.
It makes the story feel even more urgent, right? Because we can imagine ourselves in Milo's shoes, frantically searching online, knowing that, the fate of humanity might depend on finding this one woman.
Absolutely. It adds a layer of tension and suspense because we understand the tools and the potential risks involved.
Oh, yeah?
And after what feels like an eternity, he gets a hit. He finds a woman named Sarah who matches the face from his vision.
Finds her social media profiles, sees pictures of her with her kids, her everyday life. Talk about heartbreaking, because he knows what he saw in his vision. He knows what might happen to her.
It's a very powerful moment of moral conflict for Milo. Wrestling with this burden of knowledge, the weight of this potential future he can't unsee. It raises these questions about responsibility. Does knowing the future condemn us to repeating it, or does it empower us to change it?
So now he has a name, Sarah. But what's he supposed to do with it? He can't just walk up to a stranger and be like, hey, I had a vision of you turning into a zombie. That's going to land him in a psych ward faster than you can say brains.
Yeah, he needs a plan. And fast. He needs to understand how his visions work, how to control them, and most importantly, how to use this information to prevent the outbreak. This is where the old atlas comes back into play.
Right. He remembers what the nurse said about the atlas containing secrets about plagues and viruses. So he starts poring over these fragile pages, looking for anything that might connect to his visions, to Sarah, to the potential zombie apocalypse.
The atlas becomes this tangible link to the past, like a repository of forgotten knowledge that could hold the key to understanding and maybe even stopping the zombie plague. It's a pretty classic element in these kinds of stories, right? This search for lost artifacts or hidden wisdom.
It's like those ancient maps that lead to buried treasure. But this time, the treasure is knowledge that could save humanity.
Exactly. And as Milo is examining the atlas, he notices these strange symbols drawn in the margins. They seem almost out of place, like some kind of ancient graffiti. He touches them and bam, another vision.
Whoa, another one. What does he see this time?
Not zombies, but plague doctors from centuries ago battling some mysterious illness. It's like the author is weaving together these different timelines, suggesting that the zombie outbreak might be a manifestation of something much older, something rooted in humanity's long and often terrifying history of disease.
It's like the zombie plague is just this new gruesome twist on an old enemy. And get this, the symbols in the atlas, they match markings that he saw on Sarah's bag in his vision. It's like a horrifying jigsaw puzzle starting to come together.
These symbols are like a recurring motif, this visual clue linking all the different threads of the story. It's a clever technique for building suspense and drawing the reader deeper into the mystery.
So now Milo has a name, some creepy symbols, and a whole lot of unanswered questions. But one thing is crystal clear. This isn't just some random zombie outbreak. There's something bigger. Something ancient and terrifying lurking beneath the surface.
And with each new piece of the puzzle, the stakes get higher. It's no longer just about stopping a few zombies. It's about stopping a plague that could wipe out humanity.
Welcome back to the Drunken Zombies podcast. So we left Milo in a pretty tight spot. He's found Sarah, the woman from his vision, but now what? I mean, he can't just go up to her and be like, hey, you're going to be patient zero in a zombie apocalypse, can he?
He's in a tough position, for sure. I mean, he needs to warn Sarah, right? And he needs to figure out how those symbols connect to this plague, but he can't scare her off. It's like a very delicate balance.
Definitely a tricky situation.
Yeah.
What options does a graphic designer have in a zombie apocalypse anyway?
Well, I mean, think about it. He's creative, resourceful, knows how to communicate visually, so he could use those skills to kind of approach Sarah without revealing these terrifying premonitions, maybe create a reason to connect with her, something, based on her interests, what he saw on her social media.
Oh, so he could use his design skills, like as a cover.
Mm-hmm.
A way to get close to Sarah without raising suspicion. That's brilliant.
Exactly. It plays to his strengths. It allows him to gather more information without resorting to, drastic measures. And that's precisely what our clever protagonist does. He designs this flyer for a community event, something that he knows Sarah would be interested in, and reaches out to her online, pretending that he needs her input.
Smooth move, Milo. It's amazing how he's using these everyday skills to navigate this extraordinary, terrifying situation. Shows that even in a zombie apocalypse, our knowledge and passions can be valuable assets.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we all have something to contribute, even in the most unexpected circumstances. So he messages Sarah, and thankfully she responds, and they start chatting online, and he's very carefully trying to learn more about her routine, her life, all while pretending to be, this friendly, interested graphic designer. Talk about a high-stakes acting job.
Right. He's walking a tightrope here, trying to, gather intel about a potential zombie outbreak without letting on that he knows the future. One wrong word could blow his cover and send Sarah running.
Yeah, the author's really skillfully building the suspense here, making us wonder if Milo can pull this off. And of course, it all leads to this, pivotal moment. Milo needs to see Sarah in person. He needs to confirm whether she's carrying the bag with those creepy symbols. So he arranges to meet her at a coffee shop near her work, using the flyer design as an excuse.
The tension is palpable. It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck, knowing that something terrible is about to happen, but unable to stop it.
And then the moment of truth arrives. Sarah walks into the coffee shop, and Milo sees it. The bag. The same one from his vision. Those chilling symbols. His worst fears are confirmed.
It must feel like his whole world is crashing down around him. What happens next?
Well, Milo knows time is running out. He remembers the nurse's words, about names having power. He needs to learn more about Sarah, those symbols, and their connection to those historical plagues he saw in the atlas. He's on a quest for answers, a race against time to save Sarah, and maybe even the world. But that's a story for another day.
Well, that's it for today's episode of the Drunken Zombies podcast. If you enjoyed this terrifying tale and want to hear more bone-chilling zombie stories, don't forget to rate and follow. We'll be back tomorrow with another spine-tingling adventure. Until then, sleep tight and don't let the zombies bite.